Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're taking a look at the subject of financing watches and jewellery. So as with all my reviews or videos, let's go back in time and look at the brief history of financing jewellery and watches. So within the last 5 or 6 years, it's become an increasingly popular option for people when buying watches and jewellery to actually spread the cost and not have to pay for it all up front. Before that, people never really did that at all because there wasn't really the option. Definitely with retailers, it was never really an option. It had to be something you'd buy up front, full in cash or whatever. And there were certain people that would spread the cost by taking out personal loans to buy watches or engagement rings, but really there was never a retailer like ourselves offering finance options. Now many companies offer it across the watch industry and the jewellery industry for engagement rings and watches for all different range of price points as well. So it's really taken off and done very well and become quite popular way, or a popular mode of payment. There's many great advantages to paying via finance. For example, being able to look at a watch that you wouldn't have been able to look at before because it was out of your budget range. It was a much higher price point than you could ever afford. Now finance brings that into the picture for you and makes it an option actually in your list. Same goes for engagement rings as well. People are able to look at a much greater size or much greater rarity of stone for engagement ring when they're able to use finance as a payment option. You're able to take that initial budget you had before as your deposit and really, you kind of got something that's 5 times, 6 times, 7 times as expensive as you were originally looking at. So for some people it really works out as a fantastic option, but there's still a little bit of uncertainty around watches and jewellery and paying with finance. There are plenty of people, especially lots of our clients, that are not so sure about paying for watches through finance and engagement rings, especially through finance, because they believe that an engagement ring or a piece of jewellery is something that should be bought in cash or bought outright, and you shouldn't owe anything on it. It should be completely yours. So when your fiance wears the engagement ring, it should be completely owned by you outright. And sometimes people think the same about watches as well. When they wear a watch every single day on their wrist, they want to know that it's 100% theirs and no one else is not owed any money on it. But there are plenty of clients that have a completely different view. Tends to be the old school clients that would never ever consider financing a watch. It just really depends on the person. But really this whole financing ethos has come from the car industry really. Around 10 years ago, the car industry started to introduce finance as an option for payment, and nowadays it's actually seen as weird if you don't finance your car, seen as unusual to buy it cash. When you go to a car showroom or a car showroom or car brand, someone like VW, a big company, they'll tend to push finance on you much more so than cash. In fact, they would rather you buy it through finance than you would through a cash payment. So it definitely has changed completely the way that we buy cars, finance. And whether or not I think it will change watch and jewelry industry in the same way, I don't think so. I don't think we'll ever get to the same level that the car industry is. I think because cars are seen slightly as a consumable in some ways, because they have a limited shelf life, whereas jewelry and watches is really designed to be a forever item, then I think that it's okay to have it on finance. You're not going to have it forever. You're going to get rid of it. You tend to not really form that same connection with a car that you do, a ring, an engagement ring, for example, for your fiance, or your watch that you wear every single day that you intend to give your son or daughter or whoever. Something to look at though is where finance is a really great option. Like I said before, fantastic if you want to up your budget. And it really helps a lot of people to massively up their budget and look at something that they never thought they could ever consider before. Another great thing actually is when you can use finance smartly, and that's when you're looking at investment watches like a Rolex Daytona or a Rolex Submariner, for example, watches that are going to appreciate every year in value more than the interest rate that you're getting on that watch. Yes, some companies will offer 0% finance on watches, but in general, you could take out a personal loan for quite a low interest rate per year and actually know for almost a fact that that Rolex or that Patek Philippe will go up more than that interest rate that you're paying. So in some respects, it can be a smart way to pay for a watch because you're not tying up all that capital into that one thing. You can actually spread your capital over a few different things. But yeah, it really depends on the individual. Certain people could never justify buying a watch through finance or buying a piece of jewelry through finance. Certain brands that offer finance, or you find from goldsmiths or other companies, for example, that offer finance, especially 0% finance, really good interest rates and incredibly low deposits as well, tend to be on brands like Tag, Heuer, Hublot, for example. Tends to be those brands that actually those watches depreciate in value and go down in value quite a lot. They tend to be the watches that you can get much better interest rates and much better finance deals on. Watches like Patek Philippe are incredibly difficult to find finance deals on. Audemars Piguet and Rolex also can sometimes be a little bit harder to find finance deals on good rates. But those brands that depreciate tend to have really great offers. Let's look also at jewelry as well, but more specifically engagement rings on finance. This is a really interesting new development within the last sort of 4 years that we've seen a lot of people thinking about buying engagement rings through finance as a payment option. Again, used to be something, engagement rings are an old school tradition, but to think about paying for that monthly, there are certain people that are too old school really to think of that as an option to pay for that ring. They believe in that 2 months wages should be spent on the ring. It should be bought outright and owned 100% and kept for the rest of your life. Whereas some people, in the modern society, we all like cars. We're happy to finance things like cars and our phones and etc., etc. So they think, why not just finance our jewelry and our watches? But it's a great thing really to be able to up your budget, and really helps clients to up their budget and look at something that they wish they could have owned. It really brings their dream pieces into reality and allows them to really buy exactly what they want rather than being held back by a certain budget. Again, like I said, still the same feeling though, that you probably want to own something like an engagement ring outright, but really depends on the individual. So overall, to what do I think? We stopped actually doing finance a couple years ago, because of lack of interest from our clients. They just didn't use our finance service, and so I think it really depends on the client that you're looking at. There are certain clients that really love to use finance, and it's a fantastic option for them. We have nothing against finance. We didn't end it because we didn't like using it. It was great when we did use it, but it was just not very popular for us as a mode of payment. I think it really depends on the individual as to whether or not they're comfortable buying something as personal as a piece of jewelry or a watch through finance, and knowing that you technically don't own that 100%. But it's a fantastic tool for being able to afford what you actually really want. And the same goes for cars as well. When you're buying a car, it really brings in that dream car, into a possibility, as a possibility. It brings that dream car to the table. So yeah, it depends on the individual and your individual circumstances as to what you want to do. There are times when it's smart and there are times when it's not. But let us know in the comments what you think about financing watches and jewelry. We'd be really interested to know what your opinion is. Like I said, we've stopped doing it, so it doesn't necessarily affect us, but it's a great discussion to have anyway. It's still a relatively new mode of payment in the jewelry and watch industry, so it's interesting to share everyone's opinion on this subject. Thanks guys for watching, and as always, if you're interested in any of the watches mentioned during this video or shown during this video, then don't hesitate to contact us. Our details are in the description and also at the end of the video. We'd be happy to call any watch into stock for you.